Hey everybody, before we get started, I just remind you this episode is brought to you by our patrons like Adam the Harp, Icon Comics, Akazume, Architect Hand Black is the G, Carlos, Dragon, Ferris, Jeremy Vasquez, Jonathan Sandoval, Legendary Boss Hunter, Liam Kessler, Richard Raptor, Rogue Robin, Charvor, Shiny P, Sun Guy Named Bob, 723, and Varian the Crow. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon and get access to episodes early, and that's what really helps out. Thank you for your support, everybody. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Talk FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll that 5 star. There's a lot of use in that sentence now that I think about it. So we're sparkling across the sky today and I hope you are ready to play ball. Our subject this time is the new Valentine's limited release SSR, Sei Shonagon, who is another famous historical Japanese author. It's almost like there's a theme or something here. Why is she an archer? Kamari, probably. Don't think about it too hard. Anyway, make sure your phone is strapped in and you've got your selfie stick because we're going to talk about a servant's real-life history, their fate lore with a capital L, their mechanics, and their rarity. Not how many sparkly stars they've got, but how frequently those rate-ups come, if this is your first Wanted. And with that out of the way, I think we'll just jump into it because I just had some spicy chicken, so I don't know how long I can keep myself together. All right. Before we get started, I will apologize in advance. My pop filter is broken, so you will have to deal with some plosives. Sorry about that. I'll try not to emphasize them as much as that one. Anyway, we begin with the history. Sei Shonagon is another famous historical Japanese author and poet from the Heian Period, spanning from around 794 to 1185, and she served as a courtier to the Empress Teishi. Based on our records, she was probably born in the year 966, but her death date is not so confirmed. She may have died in either 1017 or 1025. I haven't found any definite sources on either. This is often the case for these time periods. Like a lot of court ladies during this time, Sei was not actually known by her given name, which often wasn't recorded at all. The name Sei refers to a different pronunciation of one of the characters in her family name, which we know, Kiyohara, and Shonagon is the rank for a court counselor. It's a median rank. But curiously, it was not a rank either of her husbands or her father held, so it's a little bit of a mystery. We're not sure why she was called that, but she was. There is some suggestion that her birth name was Kiyohara no Nagiko, but I haven't seen any solid confirmation on this, just some, decent suggestions that that's who she was. Again, records are a little sketchy. Now, the Kiyohara family was known for traditional waka poetry, and often held middle management court positions, but because their office didn't generate any money, they had some financial trouble. This may have led to, the normal kind of stuff you see in these situations. And Sei ended up marrying a government official named Tachibana no Norimitsu at age 16. They had a son who was named Norinaga. If those went anywhere, most sources I checked don't really make much of it, so meh. When she joined the court of Empress Teishi at age 27, obviously some significant time passed there, it is believed that she was divorced, however, so obviously it didn't work out. Now, during this time period, the imperial court was heavily influenced by the Fujiwara clan. Empress Teishi was Fujiwara no Teishi. She was engaged to the Emperor Ichijo at a young age by her father, Fujiwara no Michitaka, who became imperial regent. When her husband came into his majority and she was elevated to empress, from just a, consort, Teishi wielded immense influence at the court, and to spread this influence and to showcase her authority and coolness, she surrounded herself with courtiers and held cultural salons with lots of great poets and writers like Sei Shonagon. This is where Sei's most famous work, the one you often see her referenced for, The Pillow Book, is drawn from. So, The Pillow Book is a foundational work in a genre that would later be known as Zuihitsu, a collection of essays and anecdotes drawn from the author's experiences and surroundings, sometimes in a stream of consciousness style. I think the translation is something like general work or mixed work. It's just, you put a couple of small essays together, you recall some anecdotes, you tell some stories, you maybe write some poems, that kind of thing. And this is what The Pillow Book is. It's a collection primarily made up of narratives, essays, poems, and infamously lists. That's right. Sei Shonagon was doing listicles before it was cool. And so these are all recalled through Sei's time during court. According to tradition, Sei did not intend it for public reading, but intended to leave it out for a guest who spirited it away and then circulated to the court who loved it. This is kind of suggested by some of the anecdotes and stories. They seem a little personal, but obviously people did like it, and it did circulate during this time, so, it kind of got out there. Now, because it was probably intended to be private, The Pillow Book has a very unfiltered personal style. It's got a lot of personality in it, which reflects Sei's opinions and feelings directly. It's not so big on, emotional embellishment, not being over-emotional. We'll talk about, some examples of that later. but it has a very detail-oriented and gossipy tone, like an actual honest-to-God ancient gossip magazine. Sei was well known by multiple sources for her attention to detail and very good memory, recalling, down to the outfits that courtiers were wearing when she told some of these stories. This makes the whole work, and also some very specific sections, such as a famous list titled Hateful Things, a list of things Sei doesn't like, very flavorful and very memorable. It's the kind of thing that sticks in your tone, because you're like, wow, that's kind of, very idiosyncratic, very specific. So the book itself wasn't actually completed until sometime after the year 1000, when Sei actually left Imperial Service, but it became a Japanese classic which influenced several later styles of works and the Zuhitsu genre, which became popular during the Edo period, and made the pillow book a classic like the writings of Sei's contemporary, Lady Murasaki. Go check out that one if you want to know more there. Like Murasaki's writing, The Tale of Genji and the Diary of Lady Murasaki, if you don't know, Sei wrote in contemporary Japanese with occasional kanji characters, making it much more popularly approachable, especially as history went on, whereas men in scholarly or courtly positions wrote in Chinese. That was the cultural touchstone at the time. So she wrote in the actual, public-speaking language that made this a lot more preserved and more approachable later. This has some parallels to the trends of other cultural writing taking off when written in their common language. Literature kind of takes off when the authors write in their own language, such as Dante's Inferno. Dante was the first, if not one of the first, writers to actually write in contemporary Italian, his whole epic. Speaking about Lady Murasaki, let's talk about some historical drama. Are you ready for 1,000-year-old tea? So, in the year 995, this was a couple years after Sei entered Empress Teishi's service, Teishi's father, Michitaka, died, and his brother Fujiwara no Michinaga became the imperial regent and installed his daughter, Fujiwara no Shoshi, sorry, I had to make sure to get my S's in there, in my H's, as the imperial consort, and eventually raised her to the position of empress, meaning that Japan had 2 full-time empresses with full courts, who were often said to compete with each other, and also the empresses were cousins. Big yikes. Truth is stranger than fiction, guys. So, this means that courtiers from both courts were encouraged to mingle with and rival with each other. So, there were competitions between the literary talent of the entourages associated with these 2 empresses, kind of elevating their position, talking about them. I've even read some suggestion, though, it's all speculation, that the pillow book was kind of like propaganda about Empress Teishi's court to talk about how cool it was, because she had Sei Shonagon. Now, it is unlikely, though, that Sei and Murasaki were in direct conflict in the court. Sei Shonagon left Imperial service when Empress Teishi died in childbirth in the year 1001, which was before Murasaki officially joined the court of Empress Shoshi. That said, Murasaki would almost assuredly have been aware of Sei, however, and the completed version of the pillow book, which came out later. In her own diary, she describes Sei Shonagon as conceited and thinking she was clever, but does admit she has some literary talent. So, Murasaki obviously was aware of Sei. We don't know if they actually, met in person or anything. They would have been in the courts at different times, but, you know these kinds of things. People in your spaces. This could also just be a case of contrasting personality. Murasaki is described by sources and herself as being gloomy, withdrawn, shy. Sei was very witty and outspoken for her era. So, after leaving the court, things get fuzzy. Sei may have married a provincial governor named Fujiwara no Muneo and had a daughter who was Koma no Myobu, but also some sources say she retired to be a Buddhist nun, so we're not sure. Again, record keeping was not as centralized as other time periods have been, so little loosey-goosey. That said, like her contemporary, Sei Shonagon's work has survived to this day and is taught not only in his example of classical Japanese literature, genre foundation, all that stuff, a great look into this historical period, but as classic literature, period. I found references to literature textbooks which ask students to emulate the style of her famous lists, such as Hateful Things. So, very broad-reaching pop literature implications that have continued to the modern day. Very big thumbs up there. So, for lore sources, though, unfortunately, I don't have a lot for you today. I usually like to get a little bit more in there, but as far as I can tell, Sei's FGO materials profile isn't out yet. That would be Materials 10, which I don't think is published just yet. Soon, though, hopefully. Or if it is, it's not fully translated. Now, I will tell you that her skills and other such bits from her profiles that we have, in-game, are littered with references and notes based on her poetry and other various writings in the Pillow Book and some other Heian Period stuff. One, for instance, is untranslated Afusaka no Seiki, which references a late-night rendezvous with a man and a woman, something Sei specifically discussed in the Pillow Book. Pro tip, she doesn't like it. She's not a fan. call her in the morning. Now, we do have, obviously, because servant designs, we got a couple little, character design notes. Her profile specifically calls out her lack of a poet's appearance, as it is phrased in some translations. She has more of a young woman's appearance, a little bit like a modern Gara type, very flashy, overcolored, etc. And she has some, affectations that way. And it's a little unusual because, in reality, she was a bit older in the Imperial Court. I mentioned that she joined Teishi's court when she was 27, after being married for several years, having a son, etc. But this is said in the profile to be deliberate, since apparently there are some historical anecdotes, at least according to FGO, I can't cross-reference them all the time, where she was a little concerned or, aware of the fact that she was a little bit older. The empresses were both fairly young when they took power as well. I personally would have appreciated Christmas cake, say, but who am I to judge? FGO also does go with Nagiko as her given name. It's referenced a couple of times in there. Now, if you want more spicy lore details, obviously, she is a major character in the upcoming Valentine's 2022 event, where you will get loads of extra things, including that extra sweet profile slot. I'm not going to spoil for you. But also, she will get a summer variation later, a Berserker, interestingly enough, which will presumably expand on her character more, come us up with some... Man, my grammar there was awful. Come up with some extra character details and stuff. And I will say that Vanilla Sei does have 2 whole Saint Courts interludes to unlock at a later date. So if you feel like this bit is a little bit lacking, don't worry. It'll come up more naturally later. It's just that as it is now, without the actual material being out, there's only so much I can say that's not just, spoiler dumping you. So let's look at mechanic. So, Sei is an SSR Archer, as I mentioned before, which is a quite competitive slot, but she does slide into that slot with decent attack. She is number 5, just below Ishtar, and I mean just below. Though she has low HP. I believe she is the lowest HP of an SSR Archer currently in the game, period. And for this, she is specifically quick arts buster with decent hit counts and thus decent NP gain percentage. It's quite good with those quick cards, actually, and that extra. Now, her NP isn't AoE quick, though only 4 hits. Don't freak out too much. Which increases her damage versus neutral or Shadow Servant enemies by 50% for 1 turn flat. I don't know why that percentage is not in my graphic, but I double-checked that it should be 50%. And it also has an overcharged increased damage versus human attribute enemies by a similar amount. Starts at 50, goes up from there. So this means that on those damage targets, she can get quite spicy. Quick already has a pretty high damage multiplier to make up for the fact that... Well, quick NPs do, anyway, I should say. To make up for the fact that the inherent quick card damage multiplier is lowered slightly. So you can get some very high damage crossover in that section, though obviously the shadow aspect of one of those damages means that she's probably better at event farming or free quest farming than hunting bosses, but still, you never know. Sometimes they throw shadow servants at you. So there's some very high damage potential there, but you gotta work for it a little bit. Now, her first skill is a Charisma, 10 to 20% for 3 turns for the party, but it also gives the party 3 turns of 500 to 100 HP gain and 10% NP gain for a turn. So that's pretty solid for cycling NP. The 1k HP isn't a huge deal, but you'll probably want to increase this skill anyway to get that attack up and that NP up for everybody. So it gives her a little team support, and it'll add up, I guess. It's 3k over 3 turns if you can cycle it out. And I think it's a little bit relevant because of her second skill, which comes with a 3 hits, 3 turns evade, and a 20 to 30% crit up for 3 turns. The cooldown's a little bit long, it's 6, and it's a fairly low critical multiplier for a skill, but she has a couple passives to make up for that, and those evades are slick. 3 hits, 3 turns is probably one of the best combos of evades or invuls you can get, because it can last multiple turns, and if you just get bullied in solo, it lasts as much as a 1 turn of evade would anyway. So, you've got some extra action there, and I think it's good since her HP is lower to have a hard defense in here, or, semi-hard, I guess. I don't know quite how we call evades here. And her final skill is pretty basic. It's a 20 to 30% quick up for 3 turns for self, 10 to 20% battery for self, and just gain 10 stars. A little small, but she does have a lot of quick cards, so you'll probably be generating a lot of stars anyway, and it gives you the kind of battery and quick infusion you need for just, basic damage ups, attack up, quick up, trait damage mods. You'll do some stuff. So her passives are where we get a little bit interesting. She has match resistance C for normal debuff resistance stuff. She has a special independent action, Selfish, which gives her more weight specifically on her quick cards. So her quick cards attract stars more. Then she has a separate special passive for 10% crit up on her quick cards only. Very interesting combo here. And her final passive is a 10% resistance to charm, in addition to her normal debuff resistance. That's kind of cute. I don't think it's super great, but, it does stuff. So this is a pretty basic quick kit. She can recoup her NP via arts cards or other generators, such as that, getting a little bit back per turn. She slats decently hard on crits. She will generate those because she has her own, special star weight motivators. She does that extra damage on the quick crits. And she is an archer who have fairly good star weight anyway. So it's a pretty simple, straightforward kit. And I will note, the big thing about her kit is that her trait damages are buffs which last one turn. They are not an inherent damage multiplier. So if you NPQQ chain, you can get some very spicy crits on a boss after clearing ads with the actual NP, because those 50% damage ups will stick around for several turns. Well, several hits, I should say. It's one turn only. Can you tell when I ad-libbed off my script? That's usually when I say something that's dumb and wrong. So for CEs, having a 20% battery potential means that K-Scope is an easy choice, so you can immediately go into her NP and wipe a weak-ass wave. But depending on your setup, she can also get up to 30% on her NP per turn skill, so you may even go for something like a 50% battery CE, such as One Summer, or a recurring theme of quick CEs given out at Christmas. Seriously, there's like 3 or 4 of these. Check them out. 50% battery, quick up, plus other stuff. It's pretty good. I would say in general, keep quick and critical damage in mind with CE selection. Sei's own damage amps are pretty normal other than her trait damage, so if you really want to boost up that damage generically, make sure to focus. Drill down on quick or critical ups. And then ideally use her where she can get at least 1 trait damage in there, but, we make do. Now for team comp, it's pretty obvious. Sei is a quick servant with a focus on crits, specifically on quick crits, and has a trait damage mod which can get pretty good. She will obviously mesh well with Sky to do that damage amping I talked about. Scotty has a very powerful targeted quick up, which also enhances quick critical cards. She will absolutely benefit from that 50% battery, and yeah, you'll slap pretty hard. I don't know if the trait damage makes the overkill Scotty looping easier, even though she has only 4 hits. Maybe somebody in the comments will talk about that. 4 hits is generally low for a quick NP for that kind of effect, but like I said, there's a lot of damage amping you can do with that trait stuff. I will also throw out there, if you want to go into the 50% battery range, Waver is a decent selection. His buffs are still generic, and he also deals out a specific critical strength buff, which Sei could probably use, and his damage cuts probably won't hurt you because she doesn't have the most HP. Now, if you want some other options in class, however, if you want to keep your archers all together, there are actually a couple of servants who do synergize here. Consider units like Adelante and Chiron. Adelante has a 1-turn team-wide 50% quick up, and her own NP generates stars like crazy, which can give Sei some power to capitalize on that key turn. If you have your Sei NP ready on, like, Wave 2, have Adelante bomb it out, generate oodles of stars. Hopefully Sei can, gravitate those to the big chain, and you can do a lot of damage. Similarly, Chiron can do team-wide critical buffs, he can do focused card-type buffs, and his own NP removes those pesky defensive buffs, which is something that Sei is not very good at if you run into an enemy who, gets an evade off or something. So you have a few options in terms of your team comp. Otherwise, like I said, Sei's pretty straightforward. She's an AoE quick, she has trait damage. You make her number get bigger. That's what you do in these situations. Now, I'm going to warn you, if you're looking at the graphic, Ascension on Sei could be a little bit of a pinch, depending on who else you've rolled lately. For that last one, she needs 5 Comet Shards. Now, for some of you, that will not be an issue, but if you've been stockpiling, exactly to max out Castoria or something, or you've been rolling other servants who are hungry for Comet Shards, watch out. Her skill materials will also probably take some doing. As you might expect from her being Sei Shonagon, she needs a lot of mirrors and Magatamas, so you might got to look out for those, and to cap it off, each skill does need 10 eggs, and I know that those are in high demand, so keep that in mind. Now, Sei's primary banner will be this year at Valentine's, which they have announced soon. In fact, this Wanted will probably be premiering when the maintenance is going. We'll see how it works out. I'm recording it a little bit ahead of time. And then next year, she's going to get a rerun on that banner with, the same event CEs at about the same time. And that's unfortunately it so far. We'll see if there's some other ones, but it's been a little bit since she's had a proper read-up. But as a limited SSR, she also appears on all future Lucky Bag summons, so you can roll your dice on the specific ones, which can get quite specific. Now, during this year's Valentine's event, she is also a bonus servant, and by which I mean she's the only bonus servant with a damage boost and a bond boost, which you will appreciate, I'm sure. But that's really all I got. Those mechanics are pretty straightforward. An excellent character in terms of history and integration of all her stuff into her character design, with all those skill names and all these references. So many references, guys. There's freaking citation and footnotes in her translations of her profiles on, wikis and stuff. But her kit is, like I said, a little straightforward, but you can't go wrong with a servant who's got 20% battery and an AoE NP. Boom, that's a dead wave, everybody. So that's what I got. Trying to go into sugar coma, guys. Happy Valentine's Day, I guess. I'll see you in the regularly scheduled Let's Talk FGO, where Lucky and I will gush about Valentine scenes as per the usual. So, let's just go ahead and get out of here, because I got like 50 more things to do. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section down below. You can also join our channel Discord. That link is in the video description and on our channel page. If you're new here and haven't already, please subscribe to our channel to get more videos like FGO Wanted, if you want to keep having this experience of history and knowledge. You can also make sure to ring that bell for notifications so you always know we post a new video, because sometimes Albert surprises me and releases an event early, and I have to put out Wanted in the middle of the night. So ring that bell so you know, so you can get your sweet, sweet Catalyst action, as everybody will swear Wanted is absolutely double thumbs up a Catalyst. Make sure to double thumbs up, post in the comment if you got a Catalyst successfully. But if you want to get this video a little bit early, you can also consider supporting us on Patreon. I usually try to get out to patrons decently early, though sometimes that, again, wavers a little when physical time prevents me. You can also join our channel membership to get access to membership badges and emotes, where you can shout out how much you enjoyed this Wanted in the comments and on our live streams, and it really helps us out. And that is everything. Make sure to tune into our regular FGO podcast, Let's Talk FGO. Goes live to YouTube every Saturday. And check out our other content on this channel as well. All right, that's what I got. Keep on sparkling, guys.